Alrighty, welcome back. Okay, so in this episode we're looking at sanitizing or verifying the information that we send to the database before we create the profile itself. And one more important thing is that when the user clicks the sign up button, it should get disabled because the user could click it again and create two profiles at once. We don't want that, especially because the internet connection can be slow, so we have to disable this button first. Okay, so what we do is we go to our signup.php page. This is where the JavaScript is that collects the data. So as soon as we start collecting the data, we have to disable the button, and then when we send the data, after we send the data, we enable it. So to do that is very simple. Since we already have the sign up button here, we collected it from its user ID. Since we did this outside the function, it will be accessible here. So what we want to do is inside collect data is say .disabled is equal to true, and that's it. So this part will be disabled. So let me try that. Let me click. Okay, so while clicking here, a profile will be created every time. So go to your api.php page and make sure this is disabled. You add 2 slashes here on result so that the writing of the DB is disabled. So once we are done with that, let's come back here. Actually, what we could do is, okay, let me see. Let's refresh, click there, and you see this. So let's see if we can click it again. So as you can see now, we can't actually activate it after this because it's disabled. However, we need to be able to enable it. So let's go down here. Let me copy this. Just after the send data, let's enable disabled is equal to false. Okay, and then let's go up here again. Let's change the title of this thing as well. So dot value, because the value is what shows on the button itself. So we're going to say dot value is equal to loading, please wait, something like this. Okay, so that the user can tell that something else is going on. And then let's come back here. Let's just test it before we take it back. So let me click, and you see it says loading, please wait. And then if afterwards we can come back to the text sign up, and of course we have to put the capital S there. So let's test that again. Click, and it's done immediately. Okay, you won't see it change there, but in an event where there's actually you could test it. So let's go to api.php. When we get here, what we can do is tell the PHP to sleep for a while. So let's say sleep for 1 second. That way we get to waste some valuable time. So let me click. Oops, I didn't see any of that. So click. Let me come back here. Oh, the thing is, because the sending of the data is asynchronous, so it doesn't freeze the user interface. But in this particular case, we wanted to freeze the user interface and not wait. So what we could do is here where we get the response should be where we do all this. Okay, because AJAX works in a way that because we set this to true, it means it doesn't wait for the data to come back here for it to go to the next line. So we just have to do it when we receive the response. So let's do it after the response. Let's put all those things down here. Okay, so let's try that again, and let me click. So you see loading, please wait, and then when the data comes back, we get it back. Okay, so that is awesome. We have done one thing. Now let's try and verify our information before we actually save to the database. So let's remove the sleep here. Now we're going to use a little bit of regular expressions, what are called regular expressions. Now regular expressions are just a way to search text very quickly. So unfortunately I'm not going to do a regular expression tutorial in here because it gets very complicated very fast. So what I will do is I'll just show you the regular expressions that you need to use, and in a later tutorial I'm going to explain how they actually work. Okay, so to begin with, we have to verify that the username is correct. And what we do first of all is at the top here, let's create a variable called error. So this error will be used by everything. So let's set it to an empty string up here. So for as long as the error is not empty, we shouldn't be able to process anything. So we should always be able to check for this. All right. So to start with, I'm going to say if error is not, if error is equal to empty here, this is the only time that things should work out like here. So if the error is empty, this is when we run or this, okay? And if it's not, we're simply going to echo the error itself. So we're going to say else and go down here and echo the error. So I'm going to say echo something like this. All right. So all we have to do now to stop the saving of data is simply to create some errors here. So as long as there's errors, we'll echo those instead. All right, so let's begin with the user ID is generated right here, so we don't need to check for errors. The date is also generated right here, so we don't need to check if it's correct or not. So let's move these at the top. The only things we need to check are password 1, and there should also be password 2. So since password 2 is not supposed to be part of the data that is sent to the database, what I will do is simply create a variable like that. I'm not going to add it to data. I'm just going to say this is equal to password 2 like that. Okay, so there we go. Now all we have to do is check if any of this is correct. So first of all, the username we have to check to make sure that it's not empty. That's very, very important to know if it is not empty. So let's do an if statement right after we create the username. So let's create some space here. So we could put some validate username like so, and then I'll put an if statement here. I'm saying if it's empty. So let's check if it's empty. If it's empty, actually let me just get this one here. Okay, so if it's empty here, we're going to produce an error. So let's come here and say error is equal to please, you can put any error message here you want, please enter a valid username like so. Okay, and since we can have several errors at one time, what I will do is at the end I'm going to add a break tag like so, so that in case we add more than one error, we can display all of them at one time. And then I'm going to put a dot here to tell it to just add to what error already contains, which is an empty string. So it's simply going to add to that. Okay, so if it is not empty, let's do something else. Let's do an else statement here. Let's check for something else at the same time. So what we will do is check if the string length, for example, it has to be at least a certain number of characters long. So we're going to say if string length, if the string length of this same guy is less than let's say 3, because you can't have a name with 2 okay, maybe sometimes the names are there, so you can decide on your own if you want it to be 2 strings long or more or something like that. Okay, so you can add to error again. We say error dot equals username must be at least 3 characters long, something like this. And don't forget to add your break tag there so that we can add more than one error. So if this works out and we do some more validation, let's copy this. Now this is where we're going to add a regular expression to make sure that it matches a certain criteria. So in here we're going to use the formula pregmatch. So we're looking for pregmatch. There we go. So pregmatch gives you somewhere to add a pattern and the subject here. So the subject is username, that's the one. And if this pattern, so let's do if this pattern is matched, we're going to run this. But I want it to do the opposite. If it's not matched, then we run this. So again, if this is not matched, we're going to say please enter a valid username. So let me copy that and paste here. So the match that we're going to do to create a regular expression, though, you start by creating these lines like so. Okay, so you put 2 of those, and our expression is going to be in the middle of all this. Okay, now to tell it to match letters only, because I just want letters in the username, I don't want symbols and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put something like this, open close square bracket, so it will search for whatever I put in here. So first of all, I'll tell it that to search for A up to Z. So if something matches that, it's good. And then a space, and then capital A to Z, capital Z. So what I'm telling it here is that if it has letters only from A to Z, then it is good. But since we have this exclamation mark, it's going to check if the characters are not part of this set. So if they are not small letters and they're not capital letters and they're not spaces, then it should execute this error. Okay, but we have to tell it to start from the beginning. So here I'm going to put a caret. What do they call this symbol? I don't know what that is. Caret, I think, or something. So this one signifies that start at the very beginning. It has to match from the very beginning up to the very end, because we want it to match everything from beginning to end. And then the way I've put it like this, it's going to only match one character. So I'm going to tell it to match many characters by putting a star. Okay, so this star means let's say, for example, someone writes this word please. So what will happen here, it's going to match. If I just put this here, it's just going to match the first one here. But if I put that, it's going to match this one and any number of characters following there. And then let me put the $sign to signify from beginning to end, something like that. Okay, so regular expressions are a topic for another video, so hopefully I will be able to do a video on that as well. But this is going to match what you want. It's only going to allow letters and spaces, no numbers, nothing. But if you want to match numbers as well, you can simply put a space and say 0 to 9, something like this. Then it's going to match numbers as well. So users will be asked, adding numbers as a username will be valid. But we don't want that, so I'm going to remove that. So let's give it a test right now and see if it's actually working. So here in username, I'm going to type some numbers and I'm going to hit sign up. Okay, syntax error, end of file, unexpected end of file, which means we left out a bracket somewhere. That's usually what an unexpected end of file means. So I left one up there. There we go. So we are good to go now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I add this. Oops, it doesn't matter. It can be at the top here. Since there's an error, it doesn't matter. So sign up. Okay, so syntax error again, TL's online 25. Where is this? Why am I getting so many errors here? Oh, I see what's happening here. So there's this one and there's this one. So which means that wasn't the problem. So what was the problem then? Because that one has that, this one has this one is there, that one is there. So we are still missing a bracket somewhere, and it's actually here. Okay, so there we go. We are good to go. So let me click there again, and please enter a valid username, which is pretty good. Okay, so in a future video we're going to see how these errors are going to come at the top here instead of giving us this thing here, but for now we're just going to make do with this. So please enter a valid username. So if I keep typing here, enter a valid username, I'll maybe some spaces, an underscore, and so on, and it's going to refuse again, so which is pretty good. So let's use the same thing and duplicate it for the okay, that's username. What's the next one? That's email. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for email. Let me paste that. So if the email is empty, please enter a valid email. So I'm going to replace wherever username is with email. So let me just do that and say email. Okay, so we don't need to check for the characters, how many characters the email is. So I'm just going to remove this part here. We don't actually need it. Okay, now we're going to add a different regular expression for the email, and I'm just not going to explain this one because it's a little bit complex. So all I'm going to do is simply copy and paste it there. So what you will do is simply type it out like this. I'm going to zoom in so that you can clearly see it. So type it as it is like this, because it's looking for the, if you can see here, it's actually looking for letters of the alphabet followed by one or more, and then the @ symbol, and then the .com symbol, or .net, .com, whatever it is. So in short, what it's looking for is just letters A to Z of any length, plus an @ symbol, and then some more letters of any length, and then the dot, and then some more letters of any length. So it's actually quite straightforward, but that's what it is. So just copy that and put it there in the preg match, and please enter a valid email. So at this point, if I try to type a real name here, let's see, a valid name here, that's a valid name, and okay, that's username, and this is email. So this is not a valid email. Let me sign up and say please enter a valid email. That's what I'll get. All right, so pretty cool there. So let's come back and do the same thing for the password. So I'm going to copy this from the username, and I'm going to come to password here. So I'll do it down here. Oops. Like so. So I'm going to change, of course, this to from username to password. So if password is empty, please enter a valid password. Okay, and then if password true and 1 do not match, that should be an issue as well. So that's what we're going to check here. So if I'm going to remove this, and this is not equal to, so let me copy this and paste here, 2. So if not, then passwords must match. Something like this, okay? And then here we want to see, we don't want to restrict the symbols and all that kind of thing, because they create a very powerful password. All we need is for them to actually match, and that should be enough. So let me remove that. Actually, you could add the length of the password. Maybe you want to not have a password of a certain limit, so I'll copy this part and I will put it here. I can put it at the end here, doesn't matter. So I can say password. Let me change that as well again. If it's less than let's say less than 8, okay, so it can say password must be at least 8 characters long. Okay, so this is how the data validation actually works, which is pretty cool. So here we validate the data. If everything is good, we come here and we execute what we want to execute here, and the profile would have been created, which is pretty awesome. Now, as you can see, this API, because it's going to be processing all the data that we want, it's getting a little bit crowded. So what we want to do is, instead of having all this in one file, we're going to create a new file. So let's come back here and let's go to my chat. So we have the UI, we have classes, and then now we're going to create a new folder and call it includes, like so, includes. And this is where we're going to add our included file. So here, what I want to do now is, from this part where we check whether this is a sign up, this whole thing should be removed, everything up to the end here, and cut like so. And then we're going to paste that in a new file. So we have to put our PHP tags, of course, and then we'll paste there. Save this and let's go to includes, and we're going to say sign up .php, always .php, so that for security reasons. Save. Very good. And then we come back to API here and simply include that file, and we're going to say include. So it's inside includes slash sign up .php, like this. So let's test if the validation still works. Okay, please enter a valid email, please enter a valid password. Okay, so when we see the errors here, we're not going to be seeing these break tags, which will be pretty cool. All right, so the important thing here has been done in this video. So now when the it's another mode here, we're going to put another else statement down here and include a different file depending on what we are doing. So I will see you in the next video when we continue with our data validation.